Hello everyone, my name is Radio Mike and this is the Inside of My Mind, and today I want to talk about Insomniac's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4 and why this game is one of the most dynamic, immersive, classic masterpieces of its era. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so I think everyone had really high hopes for Spider-Man on the PS4 when it was originally announced, mainly because Insomniac were the developers behind the game and they had already made tons of really good games, including Spyro back in the PlayStation 1 days and the entire Ratchet & Clank series, which took the 3D platformer and the third-person shooter and just merged them together into something that was phenomenal. Insomniac are really good at making games, so when an open-world action-adventure beat-em-up Spider-Man game was announced, people were super excited. And rightly so, because this game is definitely one of my favorite games ever. It is so immersive in every way and continues to draw you in at every opportunity. So there have been a bunch of Spider-Man games in the past that have simulated the web-slinging hero that we all know and love. Often these were tie-ins to promote movies that were coming out at the time. None of them were terrible, but this game is something else entirely. And the reason it's so good is because it thrusts you into the world of Spider-Man from the get-go. This is the opening scene and the very first thing you see when you start a new game. Without any dialogue, it gives you every bit of context you need to understand where we're at in this story. It shows you various photos around Peter Parker's room, including pictures of his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, who we can assume is dead at this point, as well as another photo of Mary Jane and Harry Osborn with Peter. And scrolling through his room, we learn everything we need to about where Peter is at with his journey so far. There's a few sketches of him, of some upgrades he's trying to make to the Spidey suit, as well as evidence of him tinkering with some new devices for the suit, various news clippings of different Spidey villains that Spider-Man has already come up against in this timeline, like the Scorpion, Fisk, the Rhino, Vulture. This opening shot literally tells us everything we need to know. Insomniac's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4 jumps straight into the action. There is no origin story for Peter Parker's powers in a lengthy tutorial section. There's no amazing Spider-Man handbrake. You literally get thrust straight into the action as Spider-Man. You get to sling through the city in a fast-paced crime setting immediately, and the game slowly drips you into each mechanic, teaching you how to sling webs and do basic combat, and gradually training you up to do more complex things, both while traversing the city of New York and in combat. Right from the get-go, it feels amazing to swing around the city. It's so lifelike and dynamic, even the subtle vibrations of the controller as you fall through the sky and pick up momentum, you can really feel the speed that Spider-Man is moving through this concrete jungle. And honestly, sometimes it's these little things that are easy to overlook, like the placement of the vibration on the controller, that completely elevate a game from being good to being great. It's genuinely an incredible pairing of the technology of the PlayStation and the visuals of the game. It feels really good to travel around the city. There's even an option later in the game to fast travel to different locations, but you never even really want to use it because it's such a delight to get around naturally. The story of this game is so fantastically paced. It's its own new Spider-Man story that has the familiarity of the characters you know, like Peter Parker, Mary Jane, Dr. Octavius, Miles Morales, except it offers something completely new from all of them. I don't think we've ever seen a Spider-Man that's so sure of himself and his powers. This version of Spider-Man is confident, cocky, and quips at his enemies mid-combat, always keeping his cool. We're done with the awkward, nerdy Spider-Man character in this game. This is an experienced and well-traveled Spider-Man who knows exactly what he's doing. The voice acting and the characters are so well performed. It's incredible to see Dr. Octavius turn from a troubled scientist into an evil villain that ends up being the major villain of the story. Watching that transformation over the course of the game is so fascinating and for some reason not expected. Even though you know that this guy is going to become Doc Ock, it's still kind of surprising to see how he turns and what factors in the narrative of the game lead to that. As you're traversing the city, it's not just Spidey slinging along on his own. He occasionally takes phone calls from friends and colleagues, which again adds to the believability of the world that you're in. Spider-Man is a real person living this dual life. What's even more dynamic is that the nature of the call will sometimes change depending on the context that Spider-Man's in. All of the lines are recorded in two different ways. If Spider-Man's in a fast-paced moment in combat, the phone calls he makes will be more frantic and he'll be puffing and really showing that he's in combat. Whereas if he's just swinging around and being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he's calm, cool, collected. And I think that effort to record each line twice depending on the context really adds to how dynamic and breathtaking this world is. It is so believable that all of this stuff is happening. Sometimes you'll get glimpses into the inside workings of New York when J. Jonah Jameson comes on doing a radio show that Spider-Man listens to. Not only are these incredibly well voice acted, but they're also a really entertaining thing to listen to while you're taking in the rest of the game. They're well written and funny and informative and help to tell the narrative of the game and communicate the climate of the world that you're traversing through. There's plenty of options with customization. Aesthetically, you unlock several different Spidey suits throughout the game. Special mentions to the Spirit Spider, Spider-Punk, and the classic retro cel-shaded Spidey suit that is really there to be reminiscent of Spider-Man's original comic book look, and it blends in so well with the rest of the lifelike world. You can generally unlock suits in any order you want, and each suit that you unlock generally comes with its own special finisher move. The Spider-Punk suit comes with its own guitar finisher move, as well as the Spirit Spider having a ghost flame kind of move. These are really cool, and each suit feels so unique in the overworld. You even wear the suit in the cutscenes as well, which can sometimes look a little jarring if it's not the regular Spidey suit, but it's still cool nonetheless. Of course, none of the suit finishes are exclusive to their specific suit. You can easily have the Spirit Spider suit and the Guitar Punk finisher from the Spider-Punk suit and combine them into one. It's a really cool way of letting you customize your combat. You start off with some standard combat moves and basic web slinging, but as you progress in the game, you're able to unlock new webs and devices that really feel like you're growing and expanding as a superhero in the game. You can expand on your webs with impact webs, which automatically shoot enemies to the nearest wall and lock them there, or shock webs, which electrocute and stun them, leaving them open for more combos. You can also unlock new weapons entirely, including a suspension matrix, which suspends enemies in midair, and spider drones, which help fight alongside you. And it's not hard to transition between these weapons in the middle of combat. Insomniac definitely drew a little from their experience on Ratchet & Clank here. When you select a different weapon, an icon wheel comes up and time slows down a little to give you the chance to think about your next option. Exactly how you'd change weapons in the middle of combat in Ratchet & Clank. Mechanically, this game just works. The combat gives you so many options, and as I said, it's a joy to get around the world. You're always able to mix up your fighting style and swing around just like Spidey would in the middle of a fight. You can launch enemies into the air, impact them onto walls, throw nearby objects at them, and even catch their own projectiles mid-air and throw them back at them. It's really satisfying to pick up a rocket that an enemy has fired at you and throw it straight back at them, watching it explode on them. It is constantly refreshing. Combat-wise, the boss battles in the game are a little different. They're much more cinematic and really big in scope, often having you do some basic combat followed by some input commands to a really cinematic display of the fight that's occurring. There's a lot of bonus content in the game, for example the backpacks, which are interesting collectibles that sometimes have you traversing to places you might not have discovered already. There are research missions that certainly seem more like padding for the game and aren't exactly the most fun side missions, but they definitely get you more feeling like you're a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man as opposed to a really experienced superhero. And there's also a few science experiment type minigames that, to be honest, are fun at first, but as soon as you get a little bit into them, you just want to go back to swinging around the city. Of course, the game breaks up the Spidey action with some stealth-style missions from both Miles Morales and Mary Jane. These modes are okay, but again, you just want to get back to being Spider-Man and being a superhero. I feel like in the story mode, they're there for pacing, but they can sometimes throw that off more than anything else. There are no perfect games out there, but Insomniac Spider-Man is a classic game that I think everybody should play. There is nothing quite like swinging around this city as Spider-Man. There is nothing quite like unlocking all these suits and trying them on when you're traversing the overworld. The combat is addictive and always changing as you unlock new things. The story is impeccably told that holds up against any of the Spider-Man movies. There's an array of classic Spider-Man characters and villains that hardcore fans of Spider-Man are sure to appreciate, but even if you've just seen a couple Spider-Man movies here and there and wouldn't consider yourself a massive fan of the series, you will probably still love this game. It's as much of a fan service for hardcore fans as it is a testament to what gaming can do. This is surely one of the best superhero games ever made. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below if you've played Spider-Man and if you liked it, other superhero games you might have played and whether you enjoyed them too. You can also give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to my channel where you can find a bunch of other videos on all kinds of gaming things, as well as check out my podcast, 20th Century Boy, which is all about music, movies, gaming, comedy, and everything in between. You can find it here on my YouTube channel or on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you podcast, really. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Radio Mike, and this has been The Inside of My Mind. See you later.